lost among the trees. The forest was not kind. Thick purple trees rose like towers, their glowing leaves whispering in the cold wind. Strange shadows moved between the trunks. Every sound was a threat. Every rustle, every growl in the distance could mean death. Lyra held her daughter close. The small alien child, barely 5 years old, shivered in her mother's arms. Her tiny arms were wrapped around Lyra's thin waist. Her skin, once shining blue, now looked dull and pale. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Lyra pressed her back against a large root. She had covered her daughter in scraps of cloth torn from her own robes. Her arms ached. Her legs were cut and bruised, but she didn't care. Only the child mattered. Her name was Sari. Sari was the only thing left. Lyra had been thrown out by her own people. After her warrior husband died in battle, the elders said she brought bad luck. A cursed widow, they called her. They told her to leave the village. No food, no help, just the wild forest. And so she walked, with her child. For days, she had hoped to find a human camp. The humans sometimes hunted near the edges of the woods. Maybe they would help her. Maybe they would not, but she had to try. Dying in the trees was not an option. Suddenly, Sari coughed. It was weak, dry. Lyra's heart cracked. No, no, Lyra whispered, kissing her forehead. You will not fall sick, my flower. Hold on. I will find something. Anything. But she had nothing. No roots, no berries, not even clean water. She looked up at the thick green sky. A strange bird circled above, and then she heard it. Snap. A branch broke behind them. Lyra froze. Her eyes widened. She slowly turned her head. Something was moving through the trees. A large figure. Heavy steps. Was it a beast? A hungry crawler? The forest was full of things that hunted the weak. Lyra pushed Sari deeper into the root shelter and stood. Her body shook, but she lifted a sharp rock in her hand. Her only weapon. Her last chance. The steps grew louder. She could hear breathing now. Deep, steady, not like an animal. Suddenly a shape came into view. It was tall, armored in dark green. 2 long weapons strapped across its back. A human. Lyra didn't breathe. The human saw her. He stopped. For a moment, no one moved. Only the wind. Only the strange lights blinking in the trees. The human slowly raised his hands. He spoke. I'm not here to hurt you. Lyra didn't understand all the words, but his voice was calm, not angry, not mocking. She didn't lower the stone. The human looked past her and saw the small bundle behind the roots. His eyes softened. You have a child, he said. Still, Lyra didn't speak. He reached into a pouch on his belt and pulled out something small, silver wrap. He tossed it gently toward her feet and stepped back. It was food. Lyra stared. Her stomach growled. Her arms trembled. She wanted to grab it. But what if it was poison? A trick? Sari's tiny fingers reached out and touched the wrap. Mama, she whispered. That was enough. Lyra dropped the stone and ripped open the packet. A sweet smell filled the air. She broke it into 2 pieces and fed her child first. The girl chewed slowly, eyes fluttering. Then Lyra tasted it. Her eyes filled with tears. Real food, real energy. She looked up at the human again. He hadn't moved. Why? She asked in a weak voice. The man didn't smile, but there was kindness in his eyes. No one should die out here, he said. Then, without another word, he turned and walked into the trees. Lyra wanted to call him back. She wanted to ask for more help, for warmth, for safety, but she didn't have the strength. She held Sari tight, closed her eyes, and whispered, He will come back. I believe he will come back. And in the distance, the hunter paused. He looked over his shoulder once. He had seen many things in the wild forest, but never a mother like her. and never a child who looked so close to death. His mission could wait. He turned around and started walking back. The human's trail. Ray moved like a shadow between the trees. He was not just a hunter. He was a tracker, a survivor. One of the few humans who could survive in the alien wilds alone for weeks. His face was rough with a long scar running down his cheek, earned in a fight with a tree beast 2 years ago. He didn't talk much, didn't smile, didn't trust easy. But something in his chest had changed since yesterday. He couldn't stop, thinking about the mother and the child. The woman hadn't begged him for help. That's what made it strange. Her eyes were tired but not defeated. She looked at him like she was ready to fight to the last breath if he came closer. The little girl didn't cry or scream. She just stared at him like a lost cub. That kind of strength stays in a man's mind. He should have kept walking. His mission was clear. Track the wild beast killing off game near the edge of Sector 4. Kill it. Collect the bounty. Simple job. Good credits. But something in the forest trail felt different today. Ray stopped beside a fallen log. He bent down, brushing his fingers against the muddy ground. A small footprint, soft, half-covered, and light. A child's, fresh. He stood up, eyes scanning the treetops. Strange birds flew fast above him, away from the west. That meant something big was moving nearby. Maybe a predator, or maybe... He walked faster now, following the trail. Tiny signs appeared. Bent grass, broken twigs, a smudge of red on a tree. Blood? He touched it. Still wet. His gut twisted. Not too far ahead, a low growl echoed through the forest. Ray froze. He reached for the weapon on his back, a long plasma spear, silent, deadly. He slid it into his hand, eyes narrowing, another growl, this time closer. Then he heard something worse, a scream, high, sharp, a child's voice. Ray ran. In a small clearing, Lyra stood between her daughter and a beast 3 times her size. It had 6 legs, black skin, a thick jaw full of sharp teeth. Its red eyes were locked on the small child hiding behind her mother. Sari was crying now, but no louder than a whisper. She knew not to scream too much. Loud sounds drew more danger. Lyra picked up a broken stick. Her hands shook, her knees bled, but her heart burned. She would not let it take her baby. The beast lowered its head and charged, but before it could strike, something flew through the air. Zap! A sharp light hit the creature's side, making it stumble with a loud snarl. Ray stood at the edge of the clearing, spear glowing, face like stone. He didn't wait. With fast, trained steps, he charged the beast. The fight was fierce. Dust flew, claws slashed. The spear cut into alien flesh. Lyra held her daughter, watching in silence. The human fought like no one she had ever seen. Not even her warrior husband had moved like that. Fast, focused, fearless. In less than a minute, the beast fell, twitching in the dirt. Dead. Ray stood over it, breathing hard. Then he turned to the two. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice low. Lyra didn't answer. She just looked at the child, checked her arms, her face. She was safe. That's all that mattered. Ray walked over slowly and knelt down. The child looked at him. He offered her a small cube of fruit. This time, Sari took it with both hands. Lyra looked at him. "Why do you help us?" she asked, her voice dry and weak. Ray didn't speak for a while. Then he said, "Because I've seen others walk past pain and pretend it's not there. I don't do that." He stood again. "You can't survive out here," he said. "Come with me." Lyra looked away. "I don't trust humans." Ray nodded once. "I don't trust most people either." He didn't wait for her answer. He turned and began walking, but he left the path wide and clear, so she could follow. And after a long pause, she did. With her daughter in her arms, the alien widow stepped onto the human's trail. A mother's final shield. The forest was quiet, but not peaceful. Birds had stopped singing. The wind had died. Even the glowing insects that floated through the trees were gone. Lyra felt it first, a strange pressure in the air. Her steps slowed. Ray was walking a few meters ahead, his hand resting near his weapon. He stopped suddenly and raised a closed fist. Lyra froze behind him, clutching Sari close. Without turning, Ray said, "Something's watching us." Sari whimpered softly. Lyra knelt, whispering into her daughter's ear, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Suddenly, a sharp snap of a branch. To the left, then another. Behind them, shapes moved in the shadows. Ray turned quickly and pulled his plasma spear from his back. "Stay low," he ordered. Lyra obeyed. Out from the darkness came three creatures, not beasts this time, scavenger hunters, tall, thin aliens with long arms and metal claws. Their faces were covered with cracked masks. Their eyes glowed white. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They were here to take. They always smelled weakness, and Lyra, holding her tired child, looked like easy prey. Ray stood his ground. "I don't want trouble," he said. The lead scavenger hissed. Ray tightened his grip on his spear. Suddenly, one of the scavengers lunged at Lyra. She didn't think. With a burst of strength, she threw herself over her child, shielding Sari with her own body. Her arms wrapped tight around the little girl. Her eyes shut. She waited for pain, but it never came. A sharp flash, a cry, and silence. Ray stood above her. His spear was wet with alien blood. One scavenger dead, the other two backed away, growling. Ray stared them down. "Go." They did. He didn't even have to kill the rest. His eyes, cold as winter, were enough. When it was over, Lyra was still holding her daughter tightly. She hadn't moved. Ray knelt beside her. "It's safe," he said quietly. Her body slowly relaxed, but her hands still shook. Sari opened her eyes, then reached out and touched Ray's knee. "Ray." "Thank you," the girl whispered. Lyra looked at the man. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Just silence. And then a tear. Not from pain, from relief. For the first time in a long time, someone had stood between her and danger. Later, they rested in a hollow under a fallen tree. Ray started a small heat fire and placed his coat around Sari's shoulders. Lyra sat beside her, still alert. "You fought for us," she said softly. Ray didn't answer right away. He stared into the little flame. "I saw the way you covered your child," he said. "That's not weakness, that's strength." Lyra blinked. "No one has said that to me since my husband died." Ray nodded once. Then they were blind. The fire crackled. Sari had fallen asleep. Lyra looked at Ray again. "You didn't show us. You could have left. Why did you stay?" Ray's voice was low. "Because I've been alone too." The wind outside blew gently through the trees again. For the first time in days, it no longer felt cold. She still doesn't trust him. By morning, the fire had died down, but not the silence between them. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. She was lying beside her daughter under a rough blanket Ray had given them. The girl still slept, her tiny fingers wrapped around a piece of cloth that smelled like safety. But Lyra's eyes went straight to Ray. He was already awake. Sitting against a tree, motionless, watching the woods, one hand on his weapon, the other holding a dried ration bar untouched. He hadn't slept. Lyra sat up carefully, pulling the blanket closer. Even after he had saved them twice, something in her heart still whispered, "Be careful." Her people had warned her. Humans are tricky. They help and then they take. Never trust a kind hand, it often hides a blade. Ray glanced at her. "You're awake," he said quietly. Lyra nodded. "Where are we going?" "There's a cave," he replied. 2 hours north. "Dry, safe, I'll get you both there." Lyra didn't thank him, she only asked, "And then?" Ray paused. "Then, it's your choice." That answer made her even more uneasy. They walked for a long while through thick vines and glowing grass. Ray led the way, cutting a path with his blade. Lyra followed with Sari in her arms, still weak from hunger. The child spoke softly now and then, asking questions only a child would ask. "Ray, why are the trees blue here?" "Because this world's weird," he said with a faint smile. Lyra watched them. She said nothing. A part of her wanted to trust this strange man. But the other part, the part that had been betrayed by her own family, her own people, kept her heart-locked. As they crossed a shallow stream, Lyra stepped on a sharp stone and gasped. Her foot gave way. Sari nearly slipped from her arms. Ray turned fast and caught the girl just in time, but Lyra snatched her child back like lightning, her eyes wide. "Don't touch her," she snapped. Ray stepped back, raising both hands. "I was just helping." Lyra's breath was quick. "You don't know us, you don't get to act like you do." Ray said nothing. They stood in silence for a long moment. Finally, Ray spoke, calm but firm. "You're right. I don't know you. But I know what fear looks like. I've lived with it too long." He turned and kept walking. Lyra stood there, shaken. She looked at her daughter, who was now watching her with quiet confusion. "Mama," Sari whispered. "He's not bad." Lyra looked away. The cave was deep and dry, hidden behind thick moss and sharp rocks. Ray checked it twice before letting them inside. "I've used this place before," he said. "You'll be safe here." He gathered wood and lit another small fire. Sari curled up near it, already half asleep. Ray handed Lyra a water pouch and some food. She hesitated, then took it. As she ate, Ray sat by the entrance, cleaning his blade. With slow, careful movements, Lyra stared at him. "You've helped us twice," she said. "You fought for us, fed us, but you still haven't asked anything in return." Ray didn't look up. "I'm not here to take anything from you." "Then why?" she asked. Ray finally met her eyes. "Because someone helped me once, when I didn't deserve it. I didn't understand it then, but now I do." Lyra felt her guard shake just a little, but still, it wasn't that easy. "You say you won't take anything. But what if your people find out you helped a cursed widow and her child?" Ray's eyes didn't change. "Then I'll say I helped 2 lives that mattered." Lyra turned away, swallowing hard. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel dirty or unwanted. She felt seen, but trust. That would take time. She looked at her sleeping child, then back at the human by the fire, and whispered to herself, "Let's see if you're truly different." The storm breaks. The first warning came as a strange silence. No wind, no birds. Even the glowing insects vanished into the dark trees. Ray stepped outside the cave, his hand raised. He felt it on his skin. The air was thick, heavy, and charged. Then he saw it. In the sky above the distant trees, clouds rolled in like boiling waves, dark, electric, alive. Green flashes lit up inside them like monsters waking from sleep. Storm was coming, but not just rain. A wild core storm. Deadly. Fast. Known to melt trees and twist metal. It only came once every few seasons, but when it did, nothing survived under the open sky. Ray rushed back inside the cave. "Get back from the entrance. Cover the fire." "Quickly," he ordered. Lyra held Sari tighter. "What's wrong?" "Storm. Worse than thunder. It eats everything." Lyra's eyes widened. "The cave. Will it hold?" Ray nodded. "I've used it before, but we need to seal the gaps." Together they worked fast. Ray pushed boulders, covered cracks with thick moss, and anchored the entrance with a heavy slab of metal from his pack. Lyra followed his instructions despite the fear in her chest. Then came the first boom. Like the planet itself groaned. The ground shook. Sari cried out and buried her face in her mother's chest. The second boom shattered trees outside. Then came the light, green and white, flashing so bright it lit the inside of the cave like day for a moment. Ray covered the child's ears. Lyra curled around her daughter. The storm screamed like a beast outside, clawing at the cave, throwing fire and wind at the world. Dust rained down from above. Hours passed. Inside, no one spoke. Only breath. Only fear. But something strange was happening too. For the first time, Lyra was not alone in the dark. She looked over and saw Ray sitting beside them, legs crossed, watching the child sleep. Even in the heart of the storm, he stayed. When the storm passed, everything outside was dead. The trees were burned black. The ground was cracked. Pools of blue steam hissed from shattered roots. Smoke danced in the air like ghosts. Ray stepped out slowly, scanning the horizon. The world looked like it had ended, but he saw footprints, fresh ones, not his. Not Lyra's. Someone else had been here watching. He returned inside, silent. Lyra looked up. "What did you see?" she asked. Ray hesitated. "Trouble," he said simply. That night, they ate the last of the ration bars. Ray offered Lyra the final piece, but she broke it in two and gave him half. He looked surprised. "I thought you didn't trust me," he said with a dry smile. "I still don't," she replied softly. "But my daughter does. And storms show who people really are." Sari curled up beside them, using Ray's coat as a blanket. Outside, the sky was clearing, stars peeking through the clouds like eyes of forgotten gods. Inside, the fire was low, but the warmth was real. For now, they were safe. And for the first time, Lyra felt something deep in her chest. Not fear, not pain, but hope. A place called safe. 3 days after the storm, the sky was finally clear. Sunlight touched the black trees, soft and golden. It warmed the cold soil, melted the last patches of ice, and made the wild forest look less like a graveyard. Ray stood at the edge of the burnt path with Lyra and Sari beside him. "We keep walking north," he said. "There's a place humans abandoned. An old hunting shelter. I fixed it last year." Lyra looked unsure. "Will we be safe there?" Ray looked down at Sari. The child was holding his finger now like it was the most natural thing. "As safe as I can make it," he said. They traveled slowly. Ray carried Sari on his back while Lyra walked beside him. Her limp was worse now. One foot had been burned during the storm, but she didn't complain. She just pressed forward, eyes fixed on the trail. Each time Sari laughed at something Ray said, Lyra's heart softened. She had watched this man fight monsters, survive storms, give food without asking anything, and now he carried her daughter like she was his own. Still, she reminded herself, one good man doesn't change the galaxy. But maybe, just maybe, he could change their future. By late evening, they reached a small clearing. At the center stood a metal hut, half covered in vines and moss. The door creaked, but the structure was solid. Inside, it was dark but dry, with a cot, a heater, and crates of old supplies. Ray stepped inside and lit a small lantern. Lyra followed slowly, eyes scanning everything. "This is yours?" she asked. Ray nodded. "Built it myself. Wanted a place, far from war, from people." She looked around. "It's not much." Ray smiled faintly. "Neither was I once." That night, as the fire crackled in a metal drum, Sari played with a carved wooden bird Ray had given her. Lyra sat beside Ray, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "You could have left us any time," she said. "I did think about it," he admitted. "But you didn't." Ray looked at the flames. "Because I remembered what it was like to need help and have no one come." Lyra's voice dropped. "When my husband died, my people said I was cursed. They feared my grief like it was a disease. They turned their backs." Ray looked at her gently. "You're not cursed." Lyra met his eyes. For a moment, they sat in silence. Not strangers, not enemies, just survivors. Suddenly, a rustle outside. Ray was on his feet in seconds, weapon drawn. He moved to the door, eyes sharp. He waited, listening. Another sound. Slow. Careful. Lyra grabbed Sari and stepped back, her body tense again. Ray opened the door with a sharp pull. Nothing, just the wind. But something had been there. He stepped out, searching the trees. Footprints, small, light, too light for a scavenger. Someone was watching, he said when he came back in. Again. Lyra's breath caught. My people? Ray nodded slowly. Maybe, or worse. Lyra's hand tightened around her child. Ray shut the door and locked it. Then he turned back to them and said something simple. We'll protect this place. He didn't say you. He said we. And that one word made all the difference. That night, after Sari had fallen asleep wrapped in both blankets, Lyra looked at the man sitting near the fire. You gave us a place, she whispered. I gave you shelter, he corrected. The rest, you built yourself. Lyra smiled softly. Maybe. This wasn't just a place called safe, maybe. It could be home. Now we stand together. The days passed in peace. Ray repaired the roof of the hut. Lyra cleaned and organized the supplies. Sari planted small, glowing seeds outside, laughing every time one sprouted. They ate together, worked together, slept under one roof. And slowly, trust became comfort. Comfort became connection. But peace never lasts long in the wild forest. One evening, as the sky turned orange, a soft hum rolled across the ground. Not natural, not from the forest. Ray stood still, listening. Lyra walked. Out of the hut, Sari holding her hand. Then they saw it. A black hovercraft in the sky. Markings from Lyra's old clan. Her people had found her, and they had come armed. The craft landed hard. Dust flew. From the back stepped two armored warriors, their eyes cold and sharp. Behind them came an elder with silver bands on his head, the one who had banished Lyra. He raised his voice. Widow, you broke sacred law. You were cast out. And yet, you live. Lyra held her daughter close. You left me to die. The elder's voice was like a knife. And we return only to take what belongs to us. The child. Sari gripped her mother's leg. Ray stepped forward, quiet but firm. She belongs to no one but her mother. The elder stared at Ray with disgust. A human? You think you matter in our laws? Ray looked at Lyra, then at Sari, then back at the warriors. I don't care about your laws. I care about them. The warriors raised their rifles. Ray didn't flinch. He stepped in front of Lyra and Sari, weapon in hand, ready to die if he had to. Lyra's heart thundered. She stepped beside him. I was afraid before, she said loudly, facing her clan. Afraid to speak, afraid to fight, afraid to hope. She looked at Ray. But not anymore. The elder growled. You would challenge your own blood? Lyra's voice was steady now, strong. You are no longer my blood. She pointed at Ray. This human saved my life. My child's life. He protected us, fed us, stood with us, while you left us to die. The wind picked up. Sari stepped out too, tiny but brave. This is my family now. The elder stepped back. The warriors looked at each other, unsure. Ray slowly raised his weapon. I don't want to kill anyone, he said, voice deep and calm. But if you touch them, I won't stop. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, the elder turned away. Let them rot in the forest, he hissed. The warriors followed. The craft rose and vanished into the sky. Silence. Then a breath of wind. Through the trees, Ray lowered his weapon. Lyra slowly turned to him, heart pounding. You stood in front of us, she said quietly. Ray looked at her. I always will. Lyra reached for his hand, and this time she didn't let go. That night the fire glowed bright. Sari slept curled up in Ray's old coat. Lyra sat beside Ray, her head resting on his shoulder. Outside, the stars returned to the sky. Inside, they weren't just survivors anymore. They were a family, a human, an alien widow, and a brave little girl. Alone, they had been weak, but now, they stood together, and nothing in the forest could break that.